if everyone stopped believing in God tomorrow? Would society fall apart? Most people assume yes. If there's no divine rule book, no punishment, they'd say that we default to chaos, rip each other apart within a week. But what if right or wrong doesn't come from a rule book? What if it's just wired into you? The same way that your heartbeat is. And you know what? You don't have to take my word for it. Let's actually test your brain right now. This will only take a minute and it will only mess with you a little. Picture this. It's late afternoon and you're standing at a railway switch. Out in the middle of nowhere, down the track, you hear something. A train that is picking up speed and it's heading straight for 5 workers who don't even know it's coming. And there's a lever right in front of you. You pull it and the train switches tracks onto a side track and the 5 workers live. But there's a catch. On the side track, there's this one worker alone and he doesn't hear it either. If you pull that lever, this one worker dies instead of the other 5. Lever or no lever? Be honest with yourself for a second. Because this is simple math, if not morality. 5 lives on one side, 1 life on the other. And here's what actually happens. When researchers ask real people this question, across different countries, across different cultures, 90% of the people pull the lever almost instantly. And it barely even registers as a choice. And it makes sense, right? 5 beats 1, case closed. Most people walk away from this feeling pretty confident about themselves. Except, I'm not done with you yet. Now there's the same train and same 5 workers. Still trapped and still unaware. Except this time, there's no lever. Instead, you're standing on a footbridge, which is above the tracks. And right next to you, leaning over the railway track to get a better look, is a stranger. A big man, heavy enough that if he fell onto the tracks, his body alone would stop the train. And the only way now to save those 5 workers is to push him onto the tracks with your own 2 hands off the bridge, down onto the rails. His body stops the train, the 5 workers live. It's still the same math, but do you push him? Yeah, you hesitated. Almost everyone does, including the same people who pulled the lever without even blinking an eye. And here's the catch. If you ask 100 people the same question, almost every single one of them refuses. They simply say they won't do it. They can't physically bring themselves to do it, even when they fully can't explain why. So now for the next bit, let's push a little bit harder, because your brain isn't done being tested. Picture a hospital. A surgeon has 5 patients, each one dying and each one needing a different vital organ, a heart, a liver, 2 kidneys, lungs. Without a transplant, all 5 of them die by morning. Sitting in the waiting room outside is one healthy person, completely healthy, compatible with all 5 patients. If the surgeon quietly harvested his organs, all 5 patients would live and the truth would never come out. Except when you ask people this version, 97% are horrified, flat out rejected. Some get angry just hearing the question. Now stop and notice something strange happening here. Every single one of these scenarios has the same exact math. 1 person dies, 5 people live. The numbers never change. So why does your brain treat these 3 different situations differently, as if they're worlds apart? Why does pulling a lever feel so different from pushing a body? There's a name for what's happening in your head right now. Philosophers have studied this exact same reaction for decades, and they call it the Kantian Principle. When you pull the lever, the one death is a side effect, collateral, as they call it. You didn't target him directly. He just happened to be standing in the wrong place. But pushing the man or harvesting the organs off of a healthy person, that's a different category entirely. You're not causing a side effect anymore. You're using a human being as a tool, as a means to an end. You never sat down and consciously worked this out. Did you give it a long thought? Something underneath your conscience already flagged the difference. Instantly, automatically, before you could even ask yourself the question. So where is this coming from? Is it something that religion has taught you as a kid? Something absorbed from culture? Or is it buried somewhere a lot deeper than that? Harvard actually ran this test at scale on a massive pool of people, splitting them clearly into 2 groups, religious believers on one side and committed atheists on the other. The results? 0 statistical difference. Same choices, same hesitations, same lines that nobody was willing to cross, regardless of whatever they believed about God. Anthropologists took it even further. They traveled to isolated communities that almost had no exposure to religion or Western moral teaching for that matter, including the Kuna people living in Central America, largely cut off from outside religious doctrines. And guess what? They got the same result, same moral lines every single time, in every single place they tested it. Which means that this reaction is not coming from scripture. This has to be something older. Morality, it turns out, isn't a rule book somebody handed to us. It's hardwired. The same way that language is hardwired into our brains. Regardless of which language you speak, researchers even have a name for it. It's called moral grammar. And like language, it didn't appear overnight. It took millions of years to build. Think about it from an evolutionary angle. Early humans could survive alone out there. Small tribes, harsh land, constant threats. Cooperation at the times was a nice bonus. It was the difference between your whole group surviving the winter or not. The individuals who could trust each other, share resources, and hold each other to some baselines of fairness outlived the ones who couldn't. That baseline got passed down, generation after generation, written into us on a biological level. And there is no God that is required to explain it. There's no afterlife bribe that is dangling over your head, no punishment looming in line to keep you in check. It was just biology which was doing its job long before organized religion ever existed. Goodness was never a theological invention. Believer or atheist, raised in a church or raised in nothing at all. That moral compass sitting in your chest, there's no faith holding it together. It's there in your DNA.